Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. FB fam. Good morning. We're going to see if some folks get on this morning. We have a few people that's going to tap into our live feed on FB. Just so we can, hey Auntie Gertha, good to see you. Just as a reminder, be sure that you go on to our Facebook page, Get Me Through Wednesdays, and like us. Be sure that you check us out on YouTube. I've been getting a lot of responses that folks are checking us out on YouTube. Good morning, Sister Cynthia Robinson. Good to see you. Be sure you go on to our YouTube page and subscribe to our YouTube page. It's under Cedric Nelms. Just type that in and look for us and subscribe to our page. We have some of the old Get Me Through Wednesday feeds, and then starting in January, we're going to be doing Bible study. My brother from another, Pastor Trevor Johnson. Good to see you, man. Thank you for those words, brother. Starting in January, we're going to start doing a Bible study to where we record our Bible studies, and we'll be putting those up on our YouTube page. That way folks can check out what we're studying and what we're going over. My brother Randall Hayes, man, old school classmate. Me and him have known each other over 30 years. Randall, good to see you, my man. So yeah, go on our Facebook page, check out our Facebook page. Also, check out our YouTube page, and subscribe and like both of those. And then more importantly, share these videos with your family and friends. If it's impacting you and addressing some of the things that you're dealing with, 9 times out of 10 it needs to address some needs that some of your friends and family have. So share that with them. As we get into this thing today, I also want to encourage you to, my good friend Pastor Trevor does a 5-minute Bible study. Trevor Johnson, 5-minute Bible study in the morning, in the afternoon, and also in the evening. Trevor, we still record him. He's a good dude. Check him out. Be sure that you follow him on his 5-minute Bible studies. It'll feed your soul. So this is what I want to do this morning. Hopefully you guys are still there. Seeing that the video has frozen, but I think we're still live. Are we still good? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys see me? Am I still active? Am I still good out there? Can you guys still? Okay, video and audio is good. Okay. Thanks for your responses. Pastor Trevor had said that it had frozen, so I just wanted to make sure that we were still on. Okay. Get Me Through Wednesday. Get Me Through Wednesday. Today, I want to deal with something that was on my heart this week. Actually was, kind of dealing with it and kind of running it through my mind, which is, as we end this year, Sunday is going to be Christmas. And Christmas is always it's a joyful time, it's a blessed time, but at the same time, it's a struggle for some of us, because we're struggling to try to make sure that the happiness flows not only between us and someone else, but so that the happiness flows with those that we touch, and mostly within our own being. The thing that I was dealing with earlier this week that I wanted to share with everybody is the idea of, most of you know that I teach middle school Bible class. And we were dealing a couple of weeks ago with characters. So I have lesson plans for them that I'm dealing with. And because they're 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, their faith and their knowledge of the scriptures and stuff is still new. Even though they go to a Christian school, they don't know everything. And so we're learning about different things, and I try to keep it interesting. I try to keep it as jazzy and quote unquote as sexy as possible for them, to engage them into their faith. So the other week we were dealing with a character in the Bible known as Gideon. Old Testament dude. Gideon is not really that well known, but Gideon did some major stuff as far as the scriptures were concerned. Gideon was someone who was someone who did not look at himself as being qualified to do anything. And so therefore he had hidden himself in this wine press room or building. And the angel of God had to come to him and pretty much call him what he was, but he didn't know it. What I mean by that is that when the angel of God came, the angel of God called him a mighty warrior. Gideon was nowhere close to being mighty or a warrior. He just looked at himself as just this regular dude, and he really didn't want to be bothered with anybody. When God sent the angel, God was preparing him for his next level. So by calling him mighty warrior, he was putting into his mind and calling him what he wasn't. So the Get Me Through Wednesday today deals with imagine. I need for us to imagine who we can be. Imagine where we can be. Imagine that we can be in a space and in a time that we may not see today. There are a lot of us that are walking around like Gideon. We're walking around like Gideon and feeling that we're not adequate enough. We're not credible enough. We're not good enough. And so what we do, and a lot of times what happens at this time of the year, we try to buy people's affection. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm the first person to tell you that I love receiving gifts. I love receiving gifts. I love the idea of gift receiving, but I'm a big proponent of, I like to see other people happy because of the gift that I give them. My point in this is that some of us try to, how can I say this? Some of us try to brush over our inadequacies or where we are, or because we don't think that we are qualified to be in this family or qualified to have these types of friends, that then we feel like we have to go out and we have to buy their affection, and we got to buy their attention, and we've got to buy their friendship and their relationship. So we give gifts in honor of what we are not. So in this season, and as we have 2 more weeks or a little bit over 2 more weeks in this year, I want you to imagine where you could be in 2017. I'm writing a book, and part of the book that I was dealing with this week is that children have great imagination. Every one of my kids have imagination. And when they were able to imagine, they were actually dreaming. Kids are big time dreamers, but somewhere between the age of childhood and adulthood, we get railroaded. We get pimped into thinking that we don't need to imagine anything. We get pimped into thinking that we need to stop dreaming. And so then we become conditioned with not imagining that we can be better, that we can do better, that we can grow better, that we can have better. So I want you all to imagine that you can do something that maybe you cannot. Maybe you don't believe it in your heart of heart, but maybe that's where God is calling you to. And maybe God has spoken to you, but you haven't listened to the message. It's not that God is not speaking to you. You just haven't received the message. God has told you where he wants you to be, but you can't imagine it because you cannot see it, because it's not tangible. We live in a very tangible society. We need to touch and we need to feel and we need to know that it's there. I need to know that the cup is there. I need to know that the phone is there. I need to know that the laptop is there. But at the end of the day, we've got to imagine. We've got to imagine that we can do better. My brother Damon, I see you, man. Our imagination is what's going to carry us through in the coming year. I have some friends that I went to school with that probably never imagined that they would be where they are today. I never imagined as a kid that I would be able to have friends that are attorneys, friends that are doctors, friends that are nurses, friends that are business owners, friends that are running LLCs, and friends that are in politics, and friends that are major movers and shakers. But I also have some friends that are just friends that if I need them, I can call them and they'll be right there. You've got to imagine that you can do better. You've got to imagine that where you are today, like Gideon, where you are today is not where God is calling you to. You have to have the imagination of God. God imagines you and sees you and has dreams about you and has written a destiny for you that is far more greater and different than what you see today. We've got to imagine ourselves being better. We've got to imagine ourselves in 2017 writing a book. We've got to imagine ourselves in 2017 getting married. We've got to imagine ourselves having children. We've got to imagine ourselves not just working a job, but having a career. And maybe not having a career, but also having a business. We've got to imagine ourselves having the car that we want. We've got to imagine ourselves living in the place that we want to live. Sister Rhoda, I see you. Love you. We've got to imagine ourselves having a closer walk with thee, having a closer walk with God. God doesn't want religion. God wants a relationship. Imagine yourself having a relationship with God. Not an affair, but a true relationship. Imagine yourself going to a space and to a time and carrying yourself to a level that you've never even imagined you could be. I'm going to give you guys a secret into what I'm dealing with. I never could have imagined that I would be halfway through a book that I'm trying to write. Imagine that. Who wants to read something that I've written? Imagine myself doing that. Imagine myself working for one of the greatest Christian mission organizations, and they asked me, Cedric Nelms, to teach their middle school students Bible. Are you serious? Anybody who knows Cedric, please. Me, a teacher? I don't even like kids that much. But imagine that. You've got to imagine yourself to do something different in 2017, folks. I'm sorry. I need you to go where God is so you can receive what God has, and so that you can begin to live a life that God has already written for you. But you've got to imagine that. Sister Phoenicia, I see you. Good to see you, sweetie. You got to imagine that. I had a good friend of mine. Me and him went to college together. He's from Detroit. When we went to Morehouse has this thing where they set up and it's like a rite of passage. It's like this acceptance thing that they bring you into you being a part of the culture of Morehouse. And the guy that I was standing behind wound up being a guy that lived in my freshman dorm, who to this day is still good friends of mine. He's my buddy. He's my pal. He's from Detroit. I'm from LA. We were wilding. Hey, Brother Donnie, I see you, man. He and I lived in the same dorm, and we've been friends for 20 plus years. My buddy, man, had a severe stroke. And the stroke that he had should have taken him out. But imagine what God did. God used it as his testimony. God used it as his stepping stone. God used it not to take him out, but to transform him. Imagine that pain that you're going through is just your transformation. Imagine that suffering you're going through is your transformation. Imagine that relationship that broke up and that you thought was going to rip your heart out. Imagine that's your transformation. Imagine that's your stepping stone to something greater. He didn't pass away. He got married. He has children. He got grandchildren now. He's a man of God. He's serving and he's testifying of the goodness of God. Imagine that where you are today is not where you're supposed to stay, but imagine that it's your step into your destiny, step into your next level. Let's imagine. And don't worry about how crazy it sounds. Don't worry about how idiotic it may be. Don't worry about how impossible or incomprehensible it might be. Imagine. Walk into it. Don't stop dreaming. It's right there. But your imagination has to take you where God is trying to transform you. That's a word for somebody. Let your imagination take you where God is trying to transform you. Be blessed. Merry Christmas, you guys. Happy New Year's. We'll be back next week. But Merry Christmas. Be blessed. Spend time with your family. I could never imagine that it wouldn't be so much about the gift underneath the Christmas tree, but beside the gift underneath the Christmas tree, imagining that I would be more overjoyed to celebrate another Christmas with my family and my parents and my children and my beautiful bride. Imagine that. It's not what's underneath the tree. It's what hung on the tree that enables me to appreciate the gifts that he's given me. Merry Christmas, you guys. Pastor said, I love you, and I'm out.